For anyone thinking of ingesting a popular traditional Chinese medicine called Ejaio, one which is widely advertised in China as a miracle beauty enhancement, you should first know what it is that you are about to put in your mouth and just how it is made. For example, it is extremely unlikely that you would consume dog feces, no matter how good marketers made it sound, if you found out that is what it was, even under another name. If only it was just congealed dog poop that millions of fully informed Chinese people are eating. The sad truth about Ejaio is that you start with donkeys. Lots of donkeys. It is estimated that the current demand of 8 million donkey hides per year for this dubious Chinese cure-all now exceeds the sustainable growth rate of the entire worldwide donkey population. The demand is so great that even the domesticated ones used for farming in poor countries are now fair game. Prices for donkey skins have risen to the point that farmers who aren't themselves tempted to cash in, have had their beloved companions stolen in the night, their bloody carcasses left nearby to rot, inhumanely stripped of their hide. Even though some cultures will consume their meat, donkeys in China are most often raised solely for their skins. When this is the case, they are sold to stockyards, regardless of age or health, then sent on for slaughterhouse processing. Despite its many positive attributes, China does not have any animal cruelty laws. This fact alone deters many tourists from visiting. While awaiting their own cruel fate, donkeys may be forced to live next to the drying pelts of their recent companions and family members. Their sensory confusion will, however, be thankfully short-lived. As a consumer, you should at least be aware that at least one donkey will have to give up its life-sustaining skin so as to purportedly improve the beauty of your own. One does not need to be a rocket scientist to see that supporting the annihilation of an entire species for the sake of one's vanity is indeed insanity. What is worse is that stock exchange-listed, government-owned gelatin factories openly market the product as donkey hide glue, or gelatin, and people don't seem to care. Would this industry still exist if the emperors, from centuries past, imagined receiving life-enhancing sustenance from newborn human babies, or the still-beating hearts favored by the Aztecs? Even though some third-world countries have banned their export, donkey hides are still being shipped into China's Shandong province from around the world in vast quantities. Despite the certainty of public backlash, even some Western countries, such as Australia and South Africa, are ramping up efforts to increase the export of donkey hides to China in the name of economic growth and trade opportunities. Once they make their way to China, the hides are stacked into ever larger piles which await processing into donkey hide gelatin, or as it is marketed, Ejaio, at just one of many such gelatin factories in Shandong province, which lies between Beijing and Shanghai. Each pile represents the slaughter of many thousands of donkeys, all in the name of making gullible men feel virile, and insecure women feel pretty. Every single pelt was once a living donkey. The stiff dry hides are transferred over for rehydration. First the hides are softened up by soaking them in water. The supply train has trouble keeping up with the demand. The skins are then put into one of many water-filled tumblers. While advertised as a quaint and ancient small-scale process exclusive to the emperor class, the industrial processing of donkey hides, into snake oil cure-alls, dates back to at least the 1950s. Since no one much likes getting hair caught in their teeth on the road to beautification, the once flea-laden donkey skins go on to the next stage. Now that the donkey's skins are damp and pliable, workers use sharp staves or handheld blades to carefully shave the hide bare. Effort is taken to remove all the hair without wasting any of the blubbery part. Unless you are very brave, the gelatinous hide is not yet ready for human consumption. Other workers trim off any hairy edges that remain. A lot of tumblers are required to process the unimaginably large number of donkey hides. This is certainly not your typical laundromat. After paying so much for the hides, you can be assured that not much goes to waste. Caustic chemicals, and high-pressure steam, can reduce most anything to a usable liquid form. To better explain the process, perhaps think of how mass murderers dissolve their victims in acid or lye. Large boiling tanks extract moisture as the donkey skin extract is rendered down to the right consistency. Making donkey hide gelatin is somewhat similar to making maple syrup. As with sap, you continue to boil the beneficial juices of a living source down to a thicker form. The important moral difference here is that the maple tree doesn't die in the process, But don't start thinking that everything, such as this carefully extracted toxic scum, is good to eat. Contrary to some rules of nature, the tastiest cream doesn't always rise to the top. The large tanks used for rendering down the liquefied donkey hides sometimes require a bit of regular cooking oil to keep the brew from sticking to the pot. Once it reaches the right molasses-type color and consistency, it's time to drain the purported skin beautification and hair enhancement elixir into specially designed boxes for a cool-down process. Please don't risk burning your fingers just yet. It's still too early to sample this Asian staple of good health and implied prosperity, one which relies upon a deep-rooted, peasant-class desire to emulate the arcane rituals of long-dead Chinese royalty. Before it hardens too much, the dark gooey blob is knocked out of its casing and set aside to make room for the next batch of donkey renderings. Once cooled and hardened, the dark bricks of encased animal torment are carefully and lovingly extracted into individual slices of moral responsibility for you to acquire at an ever-increasing price. Each batch of encased donkey souls is carefully weighed before continuing on its way to your eventual consumption. After all, someone has to provide a full accounting to the devil at some point. While this might almost look comical, just imagine how fast the process is in one of the many new, far more modern Ejaio making factories. Presumably cut into the final, 1 donkey per bar size, each piece is carefully laid out to rest as it continues to harden. Each bar is inspected under a backlight, to ensure that no unsightly clumps of hair or undigestible hide are still encased within the valuable slices of future good health. Anyone who has watched the Lucille Ball episode at the chocolate factory must surely feel sorry for this poor girl. If she wishes to keep up, she must consider eating something that might well turn her into either a supermodel or an athlete, given its purported regenerative and enhancement properties. The polished and uniformly sized donkey gelatin bars are then assembled into a coffin-style box for a short time. The box is carefully lifted on end for a while before being rotated over onto its other end. The purpose of this ritual is unclear, but it is doubtful that it removes all of the bad mojo emanating from the stacks of angry donkey souls. Bad karma is likely one of the many side effects of any Ejaio consumption. Each piece is then hand-polished so as to remove the many fingerprints it has acquired along its fateful journey. Care is taken to ensure that no employee-based infections or diseases are transmitted to your product during this clean room phase. Since edible animal byproducts manufactured under less than sterile conditions are naturally prone to infectious bacteria or viral contagion, any donkey gelatin bars you might consider buying should first pass under a series of ultraviolet lights that you are certain reaches deep within the surface. Caution is warranted since the gelatin from any African hides you consume may well have come from areas where the Ebola virus is present. You would no doubt hate to pay all that money just to become a beautiful corpse. Individual slices of donkey gelatin are then encased in a foil packet before being boxed for mass-market consumer sales. While this particular factory produces a basic mass-market product, one must be aware that, like wine or whiskey, quality, packaging and the ability to market your goods to a higher-end clientele means that prices can vary quite a bit. So what can you do to help? First off, boycott anything or anyone who sells this product. Since it is sold on Amazon, you might want to file a complaint with them. You might also see if your country allows the export of donkey hides to China and then get your politicians to ban it. Most of all, spread the word and pass on this link to everyone you know before all of the world's donkeys are killed for such a senseless reason. And remember the ancient proverb, "A woman with a cruel heart will never be beautiful." That roughly translates to mean that beauty is only skin deep. In this instance, however, we are specifically referring to some poor donkey's skin. To conclude, you should realize that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and this guy thinks you look great just as you are, without any help from him or his friends.